Hello guys, thanks for joining in tonight. Man, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, right down snare, you know the gig, man. Wrap it up on that baby, man, and come on in, because we got a lot of great things going on here at the Audio Master Show. Thank you so much once again for joining in. Tonight I wanted to bring up a question that was brought to me today and the other day, actually, in one of my classes on how did and who was, when did heavy metal get popular? And I was like, oh man, that's right up my alley, man, because back in the day, in the early 80s, is probably when heavy metal really got popular, and a lot of people were into that, and they wanted to change. They were coming out of the punk culture type, so to speak, and when they heard heavy metal, it was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So one of the first bands that I actually went to and watched heavy metal was, hey, Caden, what's going on? I appreciate you joining in tonight. We got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking about when did heavy metal actually get popular. And I wanted to talk about this topic tonight, Caden, simply because I was asked the other day when it got popular and how it got popular and all that cool stuff. So my first concert that I went to was in 1984. It wasn't my first concert I went to, but it was my first heavy metal concert that I went to, and it was Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden got up there, and I really wasn't into them, so to speak, but I remember them playing Run to the Hills and all those songs that made them so popular. And here's what I really appreciated about the band was the singer could well it out, man. He was such a good singer. I don't know the guy's name. You can look him up. But, wow, such a great singer. I've never heard anybody have bravado like he had at the time. So, and then there was all those other bands. There was like Rat and Dokken. It seems like I wasn't really into Rat, but they opened up for all these other main people. And I don't know if it was like Joan Jett or somebody. They seemed to open up. They were like the open up act for a lot of these rock bands at the time that were bigger than them. But it was Rat and Dokken and Judas Priest and Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot. All these bands, man, that just really rocked hard back in the day, man. And you know what? I've seen a lot of these bands, and it was I don't know, but so a lot of people, what happened was a lot of people on the East Coast was like moving to the West Coast, and because they knew that people were getting signed right and left, man. If you had, you had a group of guys and you had a somewhat good band or whatever, or just some good looking dudes or whatever with long hair, man, they were signing people right and left. So everybody from all over the place was moving to the West Coast. And they were going and watching these bands at the Whiskey Go-Go, and that's actually where Jim Morrison did a lot of his stuff. I love metal, but now it's more, they call it more screamo music here. I don't know what it's, if that's what it's called, but back then it was called metal when I was kind of growing up, but now it's like screamo stuff. But yeah, I like guitars, and I like solos, and I like guitars playing off of one another. And I want to say it was either Iron Maiden or one of those groups where they just did these killer melody lines. One guitarist would be playing the lower scale, and the other guitar player would be up around the 12th fret, so to speak, an octave higher, and they would just be doing all these great melody lines off of each other, man. It just sounded awesome, man. So yeah, man. And so all these bands would go like to the Whiskey Go-Go. If they could play at the Whiskey Go-Go, it was like the place to play. And then I want to say in 1986, Poison, I know they moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so Poison was more of a pop, heavy rock band with these great ballads like Every Rose Has a Thorn. And so that was the big thing. If you had a metal group but you had a ballad, that was what brought all the girls in. And even if the guys didn't like the music, they would go because all the girls would show. But anyway, there was like all these groups. There was Wasp, there was who else, Black Sabbath. That was kind of early. They were probably one of the pioneers on that with was it Richie Blackmore, the guitar player, and Ozzy Osbourne singing. And I don't. Yeah, I want to say it was. Was it Richie Blackmore? It wasn't Randy Rhoads, was it? Or was Randy Rhoads with Ozzy? I can't remember. It was so far back. But then there was the Rainbow Club. It was a complete zoo that everybody played at on the West Coast. I remember White Snake, White Lion. All these bands were like just big into the hair. They called them hair bands. But the chicks digged them, and the chicks went. I went and seen. I want to say it was Poison in 86 or 87 in Lake Charles. And honestly, man, Caden, that was the funnest concert that I ever been to. And I've been to a lot of concerts. That's what I did. Probably 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, all the way up to probably the 90s. And then I kind of dwindled down and didn't go to as many as I did in the early years. But I want to say, man, that Poison put on a show, man. And I just remember it was the Civic Center in Lake Charles, and I just remember it was so packed, and it seemed like there was just very few dudes, and I was one of the dudes, and I was probably 15 feet from the stage watching Bret Michaels and all those guys running around with all that big hair, man, and those killer Ibanez Kramer guitars back in the day, man. Lime green, I think that was like one of their biggest colors that they promoted and whatnot, and they just really put on a show. And so yeah, man, those big hair bands, and then there was just a lot to do back in the day. And metal ruled, man. Metal ruled back then, and everybody just had a lot of fun. It was just party, and it was just party. It was good times, and it wasn't like it is kind of now. Now it's just a completely different whole scene. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen now with the music industry and all that other stuff. But back in the day, back in the early 80s, it was really good because you really had these bands, man. It wasn't just single artists that came out and had other people, sit-in musicians, so to speak, or whatever, come in and sit in with them and do, tour and whatever. It was actually bands back in the day. They got in fights together. They did everything together, and it just made their music so much better because it was everybody's influence on the song. And they wrote some great stuff, man. All those power ballads and whatnot. I think Motley Crue, one of their big songs was Home Sweet Home. I don't know if you remember that one, Kay, but that was a big power ballad. And then there was other bands like Metallica. I want to say that I seen Metallica with like the Texas Jam. And there was a bunch of other bands. And this was probably Metallica's first tour, I think. And they opened up for a lot of other people, but they really weren't well known just yet the first time that I seen Metallica in concert. And yeah, man, so they were and they weren't really my favorite band to watch back then. And then they had they did come out with some great songs, and they're just really, really good stuff, but it wasn't one of my favorite bands to watch, as far as entertaining goes, man. I mean, they had some good music. The drummer rocks, man. The guitar player rocks. It's a good band. But man, my funnest concert, I have to say, was probably Poison, man. They brought it on, and it was just so much fun. There was so much energy in there, and they brought it down, man. It was a really cool thing. But then there was Guns N' Roses, Paradise City. Remember that one? Take Me Down. And man, they played the heck out of that song, didn't they? Gosh, man, I remember they were blowing that thing up on the radio here in Texas, man. You could not change the station. In fact, you change the station, you'd be hearing it on one station, you change it, and it'd be playing the same song on a different station, man. I mean, so yeah, they wore that out, man. And then I want to say, there's a lot of bands that I didn't talk about tonight, but there are a lot of other grunge bands, heavy metal bands out then at the time. And then I want to say probably after that, as we're easing on into the 90s, then we had the grunge scene that kind of come out, and that's when Nirvana, it was, more, I don't know, just a completely different look, just more in rags type look without the big hair and without, all the fancy clothes and whatnot. And so the whole vibe and the whole music thing just changed from those days of heavy metal And now I guess I don't know. I guess it's just called screamo music. I don't know. I haven't really. The last band that I listened to, that was actually doing a lot of their mixes and everything for them, playing live and working the soundboard for them, was In Search of Mercy. And they were a really, really cool screamo band. It was a bunch of young group. The sad thing is they split up and everybody went their own way. But I gotta tell you, man, these kids were really, really good, and I loved getting behind the soundboard and just making them sound huge, man. And they really had a lot going for themselves. But that was the last screamo band that I actually, listened to or had a chance to actually mix and do some cool stuff with. But yeah, man. So then it went to the grunge, and we're gonna be doing another show on that, by the way, Kate. I am gonna do another show on grunge and how that came into the scene and kind of took over the whole platform as far as metal. But when metal ruled, and you know what? Didn't it rule? And I mean, when I was watching them, Kate, it was like it was a lot of the chick bands too. You had like Pat Benatar. I wouldn't say she was metal, but more rock. And then there was Joan Jett. And then who else was real popular? I seen a lot at that time. But these were open acts, man. These were great acts. And so I've seen Van Halen 3 times. I've seen Rush 3 times. I've seen Scorpions. I've seen now I never seen Judas Priest in concert. But and I've seen Dokken in concert. Actually, Dokken came out with they came out either after Metallica or before, but it was like a big Texas jam, like I say, and they were there. Dokken was there, and Rat, I've seen them a bunch of times. I don't know, it was like the band I never really wanted to see, but I didn't care to see too much of them. They had that one song that was real popular. It was called Round and Round. I think that was the title of the song. But I heard that they actually, what made them popular was because back then at that time, everybody, if you went down Sunset Strip or whatever, everybody was like putting out flyers. From what I read, everybody was just if you were in a band, you put up your flyer and you let everybody know you were going to be playing. And if you couldn't get in the club, the party was just outside the club because there was just so many groupies and so many people wanting to see these big rock bands and whatnot. And so yeah, that was I never went. I never been to the West Coast, and I never seen that side of it. And I kind of wish I would have, because I was old enough to go and be a part of that, but I didn't. I guess I just I didn't know too much about it, where to be at the time. But man, that would have been nice to show up and be there. I don't know. Maybe who knows what had happened if I'd have got involved with all that, man. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have never made it back here to Texas. I don't know, Kate, but I have seen Ozzy. I have seen Ozzy play when they were with Black Sabbath, and I have seen Ozzy play. And I'm telling you, man, when Randy Rhoads was with him, if you've ever watched Randy Rhoads, there's some videos on him playing. That guy was just really, really, really a great guitar player. Not only could he do all the standard licks, but then he had this classical training behind him, so he would always throw in those other classical notes. Because you just go, oh my gosh, what is this? Where's this guy from, man? And the story behind that, you probably heard it before, Kay, but it's real sad. Something about he got in a plane or something, and they were messing around, and he flew up, or I don't know if he was flying or with the, I really don't know, but anyway, they ended up crashing into the house on the property that they were on. Killed him, man. And I mean, crazy freak thing, right? And so you've got all these great artists back in the time, in that time era, that really never made it out because of their lifestyle and just partying hard, man. And sometimes they partied too much and never came back home, And so, but a lot of great talent, and everybody was going to the West Coast at that time. So from the early 80s all the way up to, so a good 10 years, man, it was happening. And a lot of people were really doing some great stuff at that time, man. And I don't know, it was just really, really fun. It was a great time for me to learn a lot of these copy songs and a lot of these music, a lot of that music in that time era. because all the girls loved that stuff, and it was just a really cool time to grow up and be a part of. And now I don't even know what we have. Now we have The Voice. I don't know, man. I don't get all that, I really wish The Voice, or somebody would say, I think it, okay, so this is, I'm really not 100% sure, Caden, but I think they took, okay, so if here's a house and here's a property, it was this big piece of property. It seems like I've seen a video of it, or somebody had some footage or whatever of the property, but there was a big house here, the property, it was kind of elongated, more rectangle, and they took off, and they got up, and they were just, I think they were playing around and jacking with everybody, just being goofy and stupid. And so they got up, and then they come back, come down low, and they were just doing crazy stuff. Well, the plane goes into the house. I don't know. I need to do some more research on that and find out more about that. But that's what I think. Okay, so don't hold me to it. But I think that's what happened. And anyway, Randy Rhoads died. But you know what? We had a lot of other people die in plane crashes around that time, or even before then. I mean, we had one of my favorite bands when I was in high school was Leonard Skinner. And Leonard Skinner, man, those guys were, I don't know, 8 people in the band, or maybe even more. It was crazy. And they took off in this jet, and they were, I want to say, over Alabama or Mississippi, or they were over the swamps, and they were coming back home, and they ran out of gas. I mean, can you imagine not having enough gas? I mean, how do you do that? How do you not, check to see how much gas fuels in the plane before you actually take off? I mean, in a car, I can understand taking off in your car and not really checking the gas to see how much gas fuel you have in your car. But here's the thing: you run out of fuel, you're not going to crash. So anyway, they got up in the air, and they were almost, I mean, they went a good ways, right? And they get over the Louisiana swamps, and we're in the swamps, man. And then the plane goes down. They run out of gas. And it killed a bunch of them. It killed the singer, killed many of them. Now, some of them survived. I think maybe one of the girls survived. And there was, I don't know if it was the bass player or somebody else. Somebody else survived too. A few people survived. But the plane was completely all broken up, wings shattered off the plane, and it just went down in the swamp, man. So there were a lot of great bands that died, and then some were drug overdose, some were, plane crashes, some were just car wrecks, just being silly and whatnot. And so, that music at that time, man, in the early 80s to 90s was just really, really awesome, and just the best of times, man, because just the whole vibe and everything was different, and it was just a lot, it was just really, really cool. A good time to grow up, man. That's old pilots era for running out of fuel. I know they always do the math to see how much fuel they need. Well, I know you would think so, and I don't think the plane was leaking any fuel or burning any extra fuel. It's just weird, man, when you think about stuff like that. I mean, how do you do that, man? I mean, was the pilot too far gone to even be able to, to fly? I mean, that would be like the first thing that I would do on any time that I took off in a plane, was make sure that everything checked out okay, man. Everything checked out. Everything just looked good. All under the engine, everything looked good. No oil leaks, no nothing. Everything was just good, man. And that would have to be checked out. I would want that checked out. I mean, this was a private plane, so it wasn't like it may even was their plane. I'm not sure, but I don't know the facts about it, Caden, but here's the thing, man. I would want my stuff, if I made any kind of money or whatsoever, I'd want my stuff checked out, man, before I got up, way up in the air, And so, anyway, planes kind of freaked me out anyway, dude. I had a bad experience going to, I was flying Aeromexico, going to leaving Mexico, and we were on the strip on the runway, and we took off, and we got up right to where we're to start the plane out and do this number right here. I think he actually went up more at an angle like that. And then when we planed out, then he just turned back around, man, and we landed back on the same air. We landed back on the ground. And everybody's like freaking out. Pre-flight checks for every flight. Yeah, I mean, you would think something like that, right? I don't know. Well, evidently, I don't know if they left late at night after a concert and somebody needed to get back home early. Who knows the real deal? I'm going to check into that. I'm going to find out. But anyway, so we landed back on the airport, and then some guys came out on their little bitty thing. 2 guys hopped off, started working on the wing, doing something on the wing, and I'm sitting in my chair thinking, surely we're not going to leave in this plane again. And we did. And so everybody was freaking out on the plane because we were staying on that plane, and we took off again, got up in the air again, and then we went through a bad thunderstorm, and the plane was dropping several hundred feet out of the sky, and it just freaked me out. So ever since that experience, man, I haven't been too hip about being in a plane under somebody else's supervision, man. Anyway, yeah, you'd think they'd check all that stuff out, right? Hey, look, if I was in a big band and we made our first million at 21 years old, can you imagine? It probably was. It probably really was more dangerous, Caden. I mean, because a lot of planes went down in that time, right? And especially with rock bands. I mean, there was another, what was it? The Big Bopper and Buddy Holly, and this was even before the 80s, but that band, there was like 3 or 4 famous people that were on one plane, and they were trying to get out at night, and it was cold, the weather was bad, they left, and that plane went down, killed those musicians, and they were great musicians. There was 3 of them, the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and somebody else, I can't remember. But they all died, man. And so, oh no, here's the thing. If you're making that kind of money where, hey, you made your first million and you're flying private planes and whatnot, dude, come on, man. I would have several technicians checking out my ride before I got up in the air, man. I don't know, what do they travel at? 3,000 feet? I don't even know what the flight, how high they fly at, but however high they fly, dude, I would you're up there. They say that the most dangerous part is taking off and then landing. They say that once you're up there, that's not bad. You're supposed to be not that dangerous, right? But I don't know, man, when you're falling out of the sky because of turbulence, it'll sure freak you out, especially if you're one of those little small jet planes. I know I took a trip from Dallas to here, and we got in a lot of turbulence, and it was on one of those small jet planes, and my drink goes up and hits the ceiling, and it was just crazy, man. Everybody's thought they were gonna die. But yeah, those great heavy metal bands, they were just awesome back in the day, man. I enjoyed watching all that stuff. I know a lot of that stuff, I really kind of I wouldn't say style, my taste changed or anything, because I appreciate all kind of music. I do. I really love all kind of music. But I love those big rock ballads, man. They were just great. Yeah, and there was a lot of people. They were signing people right and left, from, I want to say probably from 82 till 90. They were just signing people like crazy on the West Coast. I mean, you practically didn't even have to play, man. And you could go, if you looked good and you had a good looking band, they were going to put some makeup on you and you were going to be a star, man. Like another guy, what was his name? Here, I wrote him down here. Let's see, what was his name? On Twisted Sister. I mean, that guy, he dressed up, I want to say he had all that white hair, and he had all that lipstick and whatever. And was it Snyder, his last name? I don't know. But just really wasn't, I mean, there's so much talent, right, out there. Everybody has a checklist and walks around the plane inspecting every part. Flight. So most private jets fly at 45,000 feet, depending on the plane. Wow, that's higher than what I was thinking. 45,000 feet, man, that's up there, I guess. Maybe that at that height is supposed to be the comfort zone. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like a safe height to fly at. But yeah, that's up there, man. I don't know, man. I tell you what, planes are very, very interesting. Here's the thing, man. When I think of all the bands that came from 80 to 90, how the light switch just went wham. The style just completely changed for the most part. I want to say Guns N' Roses, when Axl Rose got up there, he kind of changed the scene, the look a little bit, because he had his bandana. He wore a bandana like this, but he didn't put it over the top of his head like me. He just kind of rolled it up and just, tie it more like an Indian headband. And it was just like a big, wide Indian headband that he would tie around his head, his bandana. And then he had that straight hair, and that bandana and whatnot. So the look changed completely, So the vibe and the look changed. And then you had, what was his name? What was his name for Guns N' Roses? The guitar player. Oh God, was it Slash? Slash, yeah, Slash. He had this big old hat, a big old top hat, he wore all the time. You'd always see him with Jack Daniels in his hand and a big old top hat. I don't know. So when that band came out, things really kind of started changing. And then right after Guns N' Roses, I want to say it wasn't long after that time, then we had Nirvana come in. And when Nirvana came in, it completely changed, man. The whole sound changed from a lot of reverb on the vocals. So in those 80s, we had all those long delays and whatnot on the vocal tracks, right? And you can listen to them, you can hear it. And so the mix sounded really, really wet in those days. And then when we got to the 90s, when Nirvana stepped in, it was like right in your face, no reverb, the amps just this real crunch right in your face, and vocals, dry, everything was dry sounding. And then so we went through that era and the 90s. So we're going to be doing another show on that. So you don't want to miss out on that one, because we're going to be talking about the mixes, how they changed the mix too. So not only did the look change, but the music and how the engineers produced the songs out changed too. I remember there was like Nirvana, Ugly Kid Joe, who else was there, man? Just that in that scene there, just, oh gosh. And then as we went on, so anyway, we're going to do a show on that. We're going to do another show on that. And I'm going to get my ducks together on all the bands and stuff that really were hip in that time, man. And so I listened to a lot of those bands too in the 90s that came out. But there wasn't really a lot of them that I was like really, really into. There was some good songs that came out, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't a lot of them that I was really, really into. And I did like Nirvana's sound. They had a great sound, man. But the following of Nirvana was, I was a little past that, and let's just say a little more mature for that era of music, and so there wasn't like I was going out and buying albums or CDs or anything of that group. I would hear enough of it on the radio, and I was satisfied. So, but all those older bands, I was going to the concerts, I was buying their albums, I was listening to those albums, and it was just a really cool thing. So here's the thing: when heavy metal really came out, and they were really hitting the scene, they made this movie, and it was called Heavy Metal, and they had all these bands on there, and it was more like a movie, like a comic type thing, or a cartoon. So it was cartoon animation with rock music, and I went and seen that movie here in town. And I was like just tripping out on all the cool music they played, and it was just a really cool thing. You can get on YouTube and check it out. There, I don't know if you can rent the whole movie or whatever, but there was all these lawsuits and everything as to why the movie at the time, it went for many years. You couldn't even see it after it came off the out of the movies. and you couldn't buy the VHS tape or anything like that because there was all these lawsuits as to how the musicians were going to get paid because there were so many different bands that was on that show. So anyway, man, it was a really cool thing. Check it out. Just type in heavy metal, and you'll see scenes from that show back in the day, man. That was really cool. Back in the day, yeah, we had some really good times back then, man. Heavy metal, man. I tell you what, that was such a cool thing. And you know what? All those clubs. Can you imagine being, in the early '80s? And being able to go to all those cool clubs and see those bands play. It was probably just wild as you know what. It was probably so wild, who knows? Who knows what happened, right? I don't know, man. Great times, great fun in those days. Heavy metal. Someone was asking me too. This is why I wanted to do a show on heavy metal, because somebody was asking me about, what bands were popular at that time. And did I go? And that was my time era, man. I was going to those shows and whatnot, and it was a sight to see, man. And everybody was doing it too. Everybody was going and just really enjoying all those big hair bands. And they did. They put on a big show. It was really more a theatrical thing, and some were more in depth than others, but. Either way, somebody was going to really put on a good show, and when you left a good concert with some of those bands, you were gonna get your money's worth, man. You were gonna be happy, and there was a long time, okay, that I kept all my little concert tickets, and through one of the moves, somehow I lost all my concert tickets, and I ran across one the other day that I found. I couldn't believe it, and I was like, how did I only end up with this one? But it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and I don't know, I have to go get it and look and see who all was playing that night with Tom Petty. But that was a cool band. I was into all kind of music, man. So it wasn't just heavy metal that I was into. I was listening to all kind of people like Bruce Springsteen. This was before he was the boss. Bon Jovi, I think he came out a little later, but and that's a story right there to talk about. Bon Jovi's story, how he became famous, or how he wrote his first tune, working in a recording studio, being a janitor just to get in the studio so that he can get involved. Hey, look at me. Anyways, great, man. Those bands are great. Here's the thing about Bon Jovi, man. He wrote a lot of really great songs, and I don't know if he's doing anything now today, but I'm sure he still has a studio at his house, and at any given time, if he wants to write a song and get play in the studio, I'm sure he can do so. But they make those great demos, and then they show it to their their promoter or producer or whoever, and it's like, oh wow, we can do something with this. And I want to say that's how who was it? Was it Quiet Riot? Yeah, it was Quiet Riot. It's like they really didn't have a whole bunch, and they actually went into they had a music attorney, and so the music attorney actually got them signed, and they made a killer demo first, and the music attorney introduced it. I don't know if it was Capitol or one of them, but introduced their music to them, and then it wasn't long after that, man. And then they had two great albums that came out. Quiet Riot did, and then I don't know, was it Come On Feel the Noise? Does that sound like maybe that was one of their songs? But anyway, man, they just went off the charts, man, and just killed it, man. Killed it. They did so good. And so a lot of those bands, man, back in that day, if you were just in their presence, and you had the look, you were going to get signed. They were just wanting to sign people because they were making tons of money, man. They'd promote them, get them out there, get them to do live shows and whatnot, keep them on the road, and generate all that money to pay back studio time. And they were making millions. Can you imagine making millions and you're 20, 21 years old, 18, 19, 21 years old, man, and just, touring around and already a millionaire, one song, One song got him there. So anyway, Caden, thank you so much for joining tonight, man. You don't want to miss out on tomorrow night, man. I'm going to be talking some more cool stuff, and anyway, I'm going to keep it short tonight. Just had a long day today, and it was really cool because I got a lot done. But I am so worn out, man. I'm just completely tired. But look, man, tomorrow night we got a great show, and if you're available, come back, man. We're going to be talking on some cool stuff and going over some cool stuff. And as always, I appreciate you dropping in, man. I do. And so we're going to be doing a grunge thing maybe tomorrow night if I can put it all together. And we're going to be talking about some different bands at that time. And maybe how, up until now. And so we'll see what happens. I don't even know what to talk about, what bands to talk about now, dude. None of them really impressed me that much. I don't know. Other than if you want to talk about the old bands, the ones that are still playing, they still impress me, man. And you know what? It seemed like I seen the other day. I mean, Ozzy's still doing stuff. I mean, this guy, I don't even know how old he is, man, but he's still doing stuff. Seems like he did some stuff. He had a new song out with that, what's that guy's name? He's real popular. He's got his face all tatted up and everything. He actually went out and did a song with this guy. And anyway, I don't know. I can't think of the dude's name, but he's got all these tattoos all over his face. And anyway, Ozzy comes out and sings part of the song. This other guy comes out and sings the song. So I mean, Ozzy's still out there doing stuff. He may be in his 70s. I don't know how old he is. He's got to be at least in his 70s. Yeah, he's probably in his 70s now, man. But he's still singing and still getting around. I mean, who would have thought, man? Great musician. Great guys, man. I really hated to see Randy Rhoads go, man. That guy was a really, really great guitar player. Played a Gibson Les Paul too, by the way. One of my favorite guitars to play. And one day I'm gonna get me another one back. I got rid of my Silver Burst and I hated it. I had to get rid of it at the time, and I hated getting rid of that guitar. And you know, only reason I got that guitar is because I traded this. I had a beautiful 2-inch reel-to-reel tape that this other guy, he was doing some work with telephones and phone communication, and he needed that. It was a stereo master tape, and so where I was working at the time, my boss says, hey, if you want this reel-to-reel tape, you can have it. Got it down, and I paid $50 for the reel-to-reel tape. It was outstanding tape machine. And then my friend, who I knew this other guy. He needed the tape machine to do his business, and invited me to come over. He had 2 guitars. He had the Silver Burst Les Paul Gibson, and then he had the one, the signature BB King Lucille. Was it Lucille? One of the guitar or black? I don't know. I can't remember. It was black, but anyway, it was a Gibson. He didn't want to let that one go, and I wasn't really interested in that one anyway. I wanted that Silver Burst. So all in all, I got pretty much, I did the trade. So really, I got that Les Paul for $50. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. I mean, who comes across deals like that? Anyway, I did, and it was a beautiful thing. I just hated getting rid of it, man. So maybe one day I'll get me another one. Right now, I have my Ibanez. I still need to string it up. I still need to do the review on the Spark amp and do some playing. And then I have a Dean back there that you hadn't seen. Oh, I did take a picture of the Dean guitar, so I'm going to put that on my thumbnail. I took a picture of the back of it because the front of it is controversial. And I don't want any problem, man. Anyway, I love that guitar, man. It has a flat neck and it's really, really fast. And you can kind of shred on that baby, and get up the neck. And but I love this Ibanez too, man. The Ibanez is really, really light, and that's what I like about the Ibanez. It's just super, super light, and I don't have to worry about it hurting my shoulder or anything. But anyway, thanks so much for joining in tonight, and we will see you tomorrow.